Resident Evil 5 is the most polarizing game in series history. While there's no denying it's one of the better action games released this generation, its steps away from the macabre have left fans wondering just where the franchise is heading. With Resident Evil 6, it's hoped that it will return to a place where fright means might. And with an all-star cast, the pieces are in place to make it happen. The gang's all here, but can what is new be old again?
Another round.
Set a decade after the Raccoon City Rumble, it all begins with Leon Kennedy. Assigned to the president's personal security detail, things go wrong when a California college is attacked by a bioweapon. The commander-in-chief was on the cusp of revealing the truth about the 10-year-old incident, and someone isn't happy about it. With the president himself a shambling walking corpse, it sets off an intricate multi-perspective whodunit that spans 4 separate campaigns. While playing as Leon, Chris Redfield, Wesker's son Jake Muller, and Ada Wong, 4 separate stories thread into each other at several points, filling in the plot's potholes with fairly dense material. And while it's not difficult to decipher the culprit long before the actual reveal, the parts in between feature plenty of intrigue and fan lip service. There's still plenty of overwrought melodrama and posturing, but there are also some poignant moments woven into the fabric of the prose that will hook you into each of the 4 acts.
We're taking you back, Captain. One way or another.
When you first boot up the game, you have the choice of playing as one of 3 duos. Leon partners with newcomer Helena Harper, Chris goes tandem with leader-in-training Piers Nivens, and Jake joins forces with Resident Evil 2 sweetheart Sherry Birkin. The other character is always available for cooperative play either locally or online, with the ability to drop in or out as needed. Depending on your privacy settings, the game will even automatically attempt to find partners for you at certain breaks in the action. Keeping with series tradition, Resident Evil 6 is completely linear, with the odd branching path utilized for risk-reward item collection. Partners briefly break off from one another to accomplish specific goals, but otherwise, it's a fairly straightforward campaign structure. Once the 3 story arcs are completed, Ada's entry becomes unlocked, and in a nod to early series entries, she goes it alone. Each of the 4 sections include 5 chapters that last an hour or 2 apiece.
Let's see what you're hiding.
Weapon leveling has been replaced with a skill system that allows you to spend points you're awarded for killing and smashing boxes on upgrading abilities. The list is long and varied, providing incentive for just about any style of play, and while you can't sell skills to regain points, you can reconfigure your character's skill buffs at the end of every chapter. In addition to the cooperative main narrative, Mercenaries returns. Plucking environments from the campaign, you're tasked with surviving waves of enemies as long as possible, with bonus time awarded for kills or destroying specific objects. With a full combo system and ammo management in play, it remains a compelling post-game distraction. With a campaign spanning over 20 hours and plenty of depths to plumb in Mercenaries, Resident Evil 6 is not short on content. You even have the ability to play as the infected and invade other players' campaigns, if they allow it.
I see you still like to play games.
Resident Evil 4 touched off the over-the-shoulder third-person shooter revolution, but RE5's gameplay still felt like a dinosaur in many ways. And while many of its conceits have been addressed in Resident Evil 6, it's still a game that struggles to cope with its established identity while trying to push things forward.
Is this what you wanted to show me?
No.
You're finally able to fire weapons while moving, which seems silly to even mention in this day and age. There's also a clunky cover system that you can utilize at any time. While these parts of the gunplay seem like no-brainers, there have been some additions as well. At any time, you can go prone on the ground and continue firing, performing barrel rolls to avoid enemy fire. You can also squeeze both triggers at once to perform a quick shot to create some breathing room.
These assholes have anything better to do?
While the game still remains live while you fiddle with your inventory, the interface has been reworked to make it more accessible. Yet you still can't pick up items and immediately use them if all your slots are full, and dropping items to make room will make them disappear for good. The ability to share and manage your partner's inventory has also been excised, and as far as weapon and item management go, Resident Evil 6 feels ancient.
Wish I believed God were looking out for us right now. But I think we're on our own.
Working with your partner is pointless most of the time. While controlled by the computer, characters will not die, providing little incentive to come to their aid and discouraging you from playing with friends where deaths mean a checkpoint restart. You can issue them simple orders with the D-pad, but they manage on their own just fine.
Go and get him!
Not now!
Melee has been a big part of the gameplay since RE4, and it's taken a huge step to the forefront here. Within the hierarchy of combat, it's weighted a little too heavily. Each character has his or her own set of attacks with context-sensitive finishers and powerful counters. Without a weapon equipped, things go even deeper with martial arts abilities made available. No matter which character you're playing as, you'll quickly realize that using guns can be a detriment at times, and the ammo you save using hand-to-hand techniques only further encourages its use. It's incredibly fun and rewarding at first, but considering its prevalence, more variety would go a long way in staving off repetition.
Aim for the head! You're a cop, right? You can handle a gun.
The impact of the combat is muted by brain-dead enemy AI. Granted, zombies aren't supposed to be Rhodes Scholars, but with the new health and recovery system, it borders on ridiculous. When your health hits rock bottom, your character will drop to the ground. While there, you'll be able to use whatever weapon and ammo you had equipped while you wait for a recovery meter to reach its zenith to stand back up. While in this vulnerable state, one enemy attack will polish you off, yet they'll hover around you, refusing to deliver the final blow. The old herb recovery system has been reworked for the better, at least. While these items still exist, you're awarded a set number of recovery pills for each plant that you can use one at a time with a tap of the shoulder button. It eliminates the wasting of healing power that has been a part of the franchise since day one. Outside of combat, expect the obligatory quick-time events and other moments where you're thrown into situations that practically guarantee cheap deaths. There's also a handful of other gameplay sections where you ride motorcycles, pilot jet planes, and even swim, but none of them are handled especially well. Puzzles are a little more prevalent than in RE5, but that's not saying much. The gameplay in Resident Evil 6 takes a couple steps forward and a couple steps back, resulting in an experience that can still feel antiquated by today's standards. Prior entries in the series have established tropes that have painted it into a corner that the developers continue to struggle to get out of. Yet there are few games that generate tension and uneasiness like RE6.
Chris? Leon? What are you doing here?
It's hard to remember a numerated Resident Evil that wasn't bleeding edge on whatever system it was released for. The sixth installment utilizes the same engine as Part 5, and now several years old, it has its ups and downs. Lighting, animation, and creature design are all the top of the class, but textures can appear muddy at times. While there are nods to prior games with the odd fixed perspective sprinkled in, the camera has issues during combat in confined spaces. Most of the big set pieces are handled via CG, which seems lazy with most of today's blockbusters handling them in-engine. Yet it still manages to impress on a consistent basis, with a lot of TLC thrown into the small details. Put on a pair of headphones or crank up your digital surround sound and it's immediately obvious that the audio is quite stellar. Creature sounds will disturb roommates and significant others while the moody music gets under your skin and sets the tone quite well. Voice acting has been handled by an all-star cast, and while the writing isn't especially good, you can't blame the performances when things fall flat.
I just shot the president.
Ada Wong says it best when she quips that Resident Evil 6 is like a Raccoon City reunion. And despite frequent attempts at recapturing the magic of the early days, the series continues to walk the path towards becoming just another great action game. With its old identity stripped away, you're left with a massive action game that tends to check all the boxes instead of creating new ones. Yet measured against its contemporaries, it remains near the top of its class. Big, brash, and full of memorable moments, Resident Evil 6 deserves to be played by any fan of the action genre. See this and other GT shows and game reviews on the GT Originals iOS app, available now on the App Store.